Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Adrian Mason. I am back. It is Thursday, October 3rd, 2013. Got a lot to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and get this up. It's going to be a three-parter. One, I'm going to talk about what have we learned for week 3. I didn't get a chance to do that yesterday. My apologies, but I'm going to do that. In addition to talking about part 2, which is the big news that just went down today, and the saga is finally over. The train wreck known as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they finally did it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have officially cut Josh Freeman. That whole dysfunctional, whatever the hell that was, it's over officially, finally. With all the talk of, failed drug tests and being fined multiple times and leaked information and all this coach mutiny and Josh Freeman wanting to leave the team and the team wanting, all that's over with. The Buccaneers just went ahead and cut their losses and cut Josh and just released Josh Freeman. Nice little jingle, right? No, but I'll talk about that a little later. And then, of course, tonight's quick pick, which is the Buffalo Bills, the 2-2 Buffalo Bills, traveling to Cleveland to take on the surprising 2-2 Cleveland Browns. Here we all thought that this was going to be a game that was going to absolutely suck, but given the events of the last couple weeks with the Browns and then what happened with the Buffalo Bills versus the Ravens, this game has some intrigue. So, without further ado, let's get it started. What we learned about, or actually week 4. I said week 3. My apologies. Week 4. What we learned about week 4 is this. We learned that when the San Francisco 49ers actually stick to their guns and actually stick to what got them to where they're at and actually do power running, good things happen. You saw what happened to blowout against the Rams. That when they do the hardcore power running, the whams, the multiple tight end sets, and they give Frank Gore the rock, great things happen. And sure enough, it did. So while we can't say that they're back officially, they look like the 49ers that we all knew them to be for the last couple seasons. What we learned about the Rams is that letting Steven Jackson go was a huge mistake. When you rush for, 18, 19 yards total as a team, you got some major problems. And I'll just go ahead and come right out and say it. Some people are going to disagree with me on this, and they'll find ways to defend it. But Sam Bradford just is not a franchise QB. Now, everybody's saying that, he hasn't had the same offensive coordinator for the same, for years. He's had a different offensive coordinator. He doesn't have weapons. Same thing Niners were saying about Alex Smith, that people were saying that he was a bust. The same things that they were saying that Alex Smith was a bust for, they're defending Sam Bradford. Sorry, can't do it. Bradford looked absolutely terrible in this game. And quite frankly, you can get him all the weapons you want. It's a combination of me really not thinking that he's a future franchise QB. The other part of it is his offensive coordinator, who he's had for the second year in a row, Brian Schottenheimer. And I have a cousin who's a diehard Jets fan who's basically telling anybody and everybody, I told you so about Brian Schottenheimer. The guy's a terrible offensive coordinator. He's a QB killer. Look at Mark Sanchez. Look at Sam Bradford. But, like I said, I'm sticking to my guns by saying Sam Bradford's not the future franchise QB that the Rams are thinking. And they need to really evaluate whether they're going to spend one of their 2 first-round picks, the second one they got from the RG3 trade, on getting a QB. It's just that simple. But they've got a lot of money invested in him because Sam Bradford got one of those big contracts before the collective bargaining agreement, before the new CBA, where the rookie pay scale was thoroughly adjusted. So they got $50 million invested in him. So they need to figure out something quick, fast, and in a hurry. Now, other games. We learned that the Baltimore Ravens are a complete mess. When Ray Rice can't rush for over 20 yards in a game, jeez, this is a running back theme here. The Baltimore Ravens are a mess. Flacco, with all that money, looks like Ryan Fitzpatrick after he got paid. When you throw 5 picks in one game, yeah, you're the subject of scrutiny. Hello, Tony Romo. But Flacco looked absolutely atrocious in this game. Torrey Smith looked all right. I mean, Torrey Smith got his numbers, but Flacco donated this game to the Bills. And the Bills, they may have found another rookie diamond in the rough like they did with Jarvis Byrd and Kiko Alonso, linebacker from Oregon. This kid is making plays. We'll get to see him tonight and see if he can actually keep up that momentum. But the Bills, they have a nice young little core. I mean, E.J. Manuel, he's doing what is asked of him. He's not blowing people away with big numbers like RG3 or Cam or Luck or Wilson. But He's playing within that system, and they're winning. They're 2-2. Yes, it's 500, but this the Bills we're talking about. Nobody had them pegged as being somebody that was going to be competitive. E.J. Manuel, Robert Woods, Stevie Johnson, C.J. Spiller, Fred Jackson, they look great. That defense is flying just flying around the ball. And, yeah, the Bills actually looked impressive. What we learned about the Arizona Cardinals is that Carson Palmer will find ways to donate the game to another team as well. Now, they were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are worse than they are. But what we also learned is that Patrick Peterson is backing up his words by saying that he's flat out saying he's the best corner in the league. Of course, Richard Sherman, Darrelle Revis, they'll say something different. But right now, that game that the Cardinals won was because of Patrick Peterson, 2 interceptions, making big plays at the right time. And, of course, what we learned about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which, I'll get into in a little bit, they're a complete and total mess. How Greg Schiano is still the head coach right now is beyond me. Mike Glennon, of course, his rookie debut, didn't work out. That defense for Tampa Bay was doing everything they could to keep this game close and keep them in it, but they once again fell off. And Doug Martin is hitting a serious sophomore slump. Now, last season, fantasy football players and owners picked him up. He was putting up big numbers. Now, you can't get rid of him fast enough. 47 yards on 25 carries. Sorry. What we learned about the Steelers is what we already knew for the last 3 weeks. They absolutely suck. And Ben Roethlisberger's having players-only meetings and calling out players. Well, you need to call yourself out for that last play in the game against the Vikings where you not only got sacked, but you gave up the ball again on a fumble that ended the game. What we learned about the Vikings is that, we may have a little bit of a QB controversy as Ponder didn't play, Matt Castle did. That passing game looked a lot better, surprisingly, under Castle. But Adrian Peterson is a beast. Adrian Peterson is Adrian Peterson. We already knew that. That's nothing new, folks. But we also learned about the Steelers' defense is that they're old. What we learned about their offensive line is that it's old. What we learned about that team is it's old. Hell, their defensive coordinator is almost 80 years old. Old. The Steelers are old. No question about it. They're 0-4. They've got a bye week this week, but they are 0-4, and they look the part of an 0-4 team. Speaking of an 0-4 team, the New York Giants. We learned about them is that I think Eli is going after that record for most interceptions in a season. I don't know, the receivers just don't look in sync. They look, this offense looks terrible. The run game, David Wilson got a few yards of, 50 plus, but that still doesn't excuse how terrible he's been playing this season. Their offensive line is completely old. Their defense is just non-existent. This Giants team looks nothing like a team that can rise from the dead. They have a chance on Sunday against the Eagles, who look just as bad, if not worse. But hell, the Eagles have a win. But the Giants, they look just as bad as the Steelers. Except Eli is making the games look a little bit worse for his team. What we learned about the Chiefs is that you give Dexter McCluster real estate on a punt return, he will make you look foolish. Find that video of him breaking the game wide open for the Chiefs when it was 10-7 Kansas City, and watch him take this punt return back and just embarrass about 8 Giants players. What we also learned about them, their defense is stout. Alex Smith, actually, if he wants to be aggressive, he has his moments. But everything that Harbaugh instilled in him and restoring his confidence is carrying over to the Chiefs. They're 4-0. Surprise! They are a 4-0 team with a stout defense and an efficient QB, game manager, whatever the hell you want to call it. I can't call him that because he's actually making plays. Jamal Charles is Jamal Charles. That Chiefs team, all they needed was some better coaching, a quarterback that was smarter than what they've had, and look at the results. They're 4-0. So, we move forward. What we know about the Colts is that, that team looks a hell of a lot better, even better than they did last season. Andrew Luck is very comfortable in that offense. It was the Jags. So, of course, they're going to beat the hell out of them. But the Colts are very impressive. And they get another big test. They've already blown out the Niners in San Francisco. Now they get the Seattle Seahawks, who are undefeated, at Indy. So that's going to be a huge game between 2 QBs out of the 2012 class. Number 1 pick, Andrew Luck. 3rd round pick, Russell Wilson. It's going to be a great game. And we'll get into that during my picks later this weekend. What we know about the Jags is that, we already knew them. Sorriest team in the league. they could be knocking on the door and making room, sitting on the couch with the 2008 Lions of going 0-16 this season. It's very possible that they can actually accomplish this feat too. So I don't have too much to say about them because I mean we all know they're terrible. Speaking of Seattle, we learned that if you give them the opportunity, even when they're down, they will find ways to make things work. Russell Wilson is Fran Tarkenton reloaded. You give him an opportunity to scramble. You give him an opportunity to beat you with his legs. If you try to blitz him, he will do so. And if you give if you give Richard Sherman an opportunity, he will make the most of it. And of course, Matt Schaub did everything in his power to gift wrap the greatest pick six for the Seattle Seahawks, which gave them their first 4-0 start in franchise history. Speaking of the Houston Texans, what we learned about them is that they're only going to go as far as Matt Schaub is going to take them. And that's not very damn far. Yes, they went 12-4 with Matt Schaub, but guess what? The big games that they needed to win last season, against the Packers, against the Patriots, against the Colts in Week 17, they blew it. And it's all because of the shitty QB play of Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub gave this game away on Sunday with a very predictable play call. Like, they're notorious for running a bootleg in one direction and then Matt Schaub throwing the ball in the other direction. Richard Sherman sat on it. Cam Chancellor blitzed Matt Schaub and knew he wasn't going to do anything. So he throws up pretty much a lame duck punt. Richard Sherman picks it off, runs it back, pick six with one shoe. And ladies and gentlemen, they go into overtime and beat the Texans. The Texans will not go any further if Matt Schaub is still their QB. It is a known fact. Texans fans have been saying it all up and down. They've got a great defense. They've got a great run game. They've got great receivers and tight ends. But it's the QB that's holding them back. Matt Schaub is not the one. What we learned about the Bengals is that, yes, they were depleted of a few starters, but Andy Dalton needs to find ways to make things happen. He is almost in Matt Schaub territory when it comes to QBing. Because he has the tools, but it's just something's just holding him back. And the Bengals are just like the Texans. They've got a stout defense. They've got a good run game. They've got AJ Green. They've got tight ends out the ass. But it all hinges on Andy Dalton, and he's coming up short when they don't need him to. No QB needs to come up short in the league, but against the Browns, that was a game he should have won. Speaking of the Browns, I take back everything I said about them tanking the season. They put in Brian Hoyer to substitute for Brandon Weeden, who got hurt, and they've won 2 straight. Jordan Cameron is the truth. He is the real deal tight end, ladies and gentlemen. I think he leads the league in touchdown catches. Period. So the Browns, they gave up Trent Richardson and they've won 2 straight since. Now, how funny is that? They have a stout defense. Joe Hayden is one of the more underrated cornerbacks in the league. Shut down AJ Green, one of the top receivers in this league. So don't get it twisted. This Browns team, they can make some moves. I don't know how far they'll go, but right now, they look great. What we learned about the Bears is that, once again, they go as far as Cutler takes them. And Cutler took them straight to hell in this game. Careless interceptions, sacks, the whole 9. Yeah, the score was 40-32, but that game was well out of reach. More than the score would implement. The Bears go as far as Cutler takes them. You get good Cutler, you get the Cutler that came back and won the game against the Bengals and against the Vikings. The Cutler that made big plays against the Steelers, yeah, the Bears team is a dangerous squad. But you get that Cutler like the one we saw against Detroit, they'll be home in December, January again. No postseason. What we learned about the Lions is that Reggie Bush makes that team go. That Reggie Bush is the Reggie Bush that everybody thought was going to be in the league when he was drafted in 2006. That was the USC of 05 Reggie Bush. That just dismantled the Bears. Reggie Bush is still making moves. And everybody that called him a bust, joke's on you. He proved in Miami he could be a downhill tough runner. Now he's proven in Detroit. You get him in an offensive scheme that allows him to run in open space, he is dangerous. And what we learned about the Lions is that, yeah, They move. And on top of that, as much as he's been vilified and rightfully so, Ndamukong Suh is a wrecking machine. He is going back to his rookie form. He's gone back into that form where he is just mauling over his opposing offensive linemen. Anybody that goes up against him, he is beating them. So you got him and Nick Fairley, Ezekiel Ansah, guys like that. They're making moves. If that front four can get pressure like they did against Chicago, hey, this could be that Lions team of 2011 again, if not better. What we learned about the New York Jets is that, what is it about QBs for the Jets, excuse me, that do just the most epically stupid plays. They find the most creative ways to cause turnovers. Mark Sanchez with the butt fumble. He just put himself on IR to get season-ending shoulder surgery, which we can pretty much say he is done as a New York Jet. But Geno Smith did probably the most absurd thing I've ever witnessed. He was about to get sacked. He tried to put the ball behind his back on some NBA stuff. Of course, he couldn't grab it. Loses it on his butt. And then the defensive player for the Tennessee Titans picks up the ball in the end zone. Touchdown. What we learned about the Titans is that before he got injured, Jake Locker is making that team hum. Like, Jake Locker is stepping it up. Whereas Gabbert and Ponder are falling off from that 11 QB class, Jake Locker is making things happen. Now, they're going to be without his services for a couple weeks because of a bad hit to his hip. But that Tennessee Titans team, that defense is pretty stout. They look great. And they get a big test against the Kansas City Chiefs coming into town on Sunday. So now they get to really see how good they are. It's going to be interesting because Ryan Fitzpatrick will be the signal caller. So I'll get my thoughts on that this weekend. Hey, the Redskins got to win. That's what we learned about them. We learned that Arakpo and Kerrigan and Barry Cofield, they played their best games yet. We learned that when they're on, they're disruptive. They're very unstoppable. And, RG3 didn't have that worldly game, but he did enough to make sure that they got the W. That defense is really the main reason they got that win. And they needed it going into the bye week. And what's funny is that the NFC East is so terrible that an 0-4 Giants team and 2-1-3 squads are a mere game or two back behind the Dallas Cowboys, who I'll talk about in a minute. What we learned about the Raiders is that they just have no luck at QB. And what we learned about Matt Flynn is that Detroit Lions game was an aberration. That is not he is not a real QB. It got so bad where the head coach of the Raiders actually called out Matt Flynn in a press conference about how terrible he played. Not only that, he's been demoted to the number 3 QB, which makes him inactive. So he got big money to go to Seattle, got beat out by Russell Wilson. He goes to Oakland, gets more money, gets beat out by Terrell Pryor, and now he's going to be sitting behind McGloin from Penn State, a rookie QB, an undrafted rookie QB out of Penn State. That's how far he's fallen, and he's making Kevin Kolb look like a genius. This man is getting paid to suck. Even Jamarcus Russell has to tip his hat. What we learned about the Eagles is that, hey, Chip Kelly, you remember when Steve Spurrier first jumped into the NFL as a head coach and he was going to bring that funning gun? You are now the remix of that. That fast-paced offense that you ran at Oregon isn't shit in the NFL. And you watch the fast-paced offense take your team apart in the hands of the Denver Broncos. That is an NFL fast-paced offense. Peyton Manning showed you how it was done. Your offense isn't anywhere near that. And then you got a terrible defense on top of that. So Chip Kelly, you could be looking at 4-12. I'm just going to put it like that. And I'm being generous. What we learned about the Broncos is that the Broncos are the Broncos. Peyton Manning, once again, shredded another defense. He gets a big test this week going up against Dallas because he actually faces a defense that's actually in the top half. Of course, he shredded Baltimore's defense. He shredded the Giants' defense. He shredded Oakland's defense. He just got through shredding Philly's defense. Now he's going to be going up against a defense that has given him the last 2 times he's played against them, he's lost. And I've got some fun things to say about that upcoming matchup this weekend. What we learned about aforementioned Dallas is that their coaching adjustments are horrid. What we learned about them is that, Sean Lee is as advertised. If he's healthy, he's one of the top inside linebackers in the business. We also learned that Morris Claiborne, their top 5 pick or top 6 pick or whatever from last season, he got demoted. So he's been garbage canned. And what we also learned about the Cowboys is that don't ever put Bruce Carter on a slot receiver, period. Ever. This Denver game, don't put him on Wes Welker. Don't do it. Monty, don't do it. And speaking of Monty Kiffin, we also learned that the Kiffin family took a massive L this weekend. Thank God, fire Kiffin. Whew, it's over. Fight on. But what we learned about the San Diego Chargers is that, hey, you give him an offensive line, hey, Phillip Rivers ain't that bad. Phillip Rivers has been shredding secondaries this entire season. He looked great against Dallas. Him and Antonio Gates turned back the hands of time. They went back into 2008, and Antonio Gates just shredded that secondary and the linebackers that were foolish enough to be put on him. And they're going to lose Malcolm Floyd, but he just keeps plugging and playing. Danny Woodhead, Keenan Allen, Antonio Gates, aforementioned. Phillip Rivers with an offensive line, and Mike McCoy giving him the opportunity to utilize his skill set and building an offense that caters to him, accentuating his strengths. The San Diego team is looking a lot like the Chargers team from 07-08 that looks to be in the playoff hunt. It's still the first quarter of the season, but they look very good. All right, what we learned about New England is that maybe, just maybe, those receivers that I talked about in week 1, Kimbrell Tompkins and Aaron Dobson, guys like that, they're starting to gel with Tom Brady. And it showed. Tom Brady showed his ass, and they won. What we learned about the Falcons is that the red zone, they're allergic to the red zone. They can't get into the red zone to save their life. I don't know what the hell kind of play call was that on 4th and 2 when Matt Ryan tried to throw an out route to Roddy White, and it just was nowhere near the mark. They don't have a run game. I mean, Jacquizz Rodgers is more of a gadget back. He's not a every down back. They need Steven Jackson in a hurry. What we learned about them is that maybe, just maybe, even though he played well in this game, maybe Tony Gonzalez should have thought about retirement. They're 1-3. They get a chance to go 2-3 with the team they're going to play on Monday. Final game. Speaking of Monday, we learned the Miami Dolphins actually ran into a buzzsaw. We learned that if they go into a hostile environment like the one in New Orleans, they're just not ready for prime time yet. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Ryan Tannehill got abused. That whole team got abused. And we learned about New Orleans is that when they're at home, Sean Payton's home, that team is dangerous. That team is deadly. And we saw it Monday night. It happened. Another blowout. So that's what we learned for week 4. And, like I said, I'll be back this weekend for my week 5 picks. On to part 2. Tampa Bay Buccaneers got rid of Josh Freeman. That saga is over, folks. That is one of the messiest divorces I've ever seen from a team, period, in the NFL. Not even T.O. could come up with something like this. Josh Freeman, I seen it coming. I knew that when they drafted Mike Glennon and just how terrible he was playing, that it was only going to be a matter of time before they switched up and went to Mike Glennon. What wasn't known to the public was really what was going on in-house. He missed the team photo as a QB and a general. That's a no-no, and that's why they took his captain stripes. And then on top of that, the story about him, having drug issues and, being fined multiple times, and just a whole rift between him and Schiano, and just how Schiano's carrying the team over, and how that front office viewed how everything was going on. It was a terrible soap opera. And so, the Bucs called around, trying to shop Josh around, see who was going to eat his $6.5 million salary. Nobody bit. Everybody said, hey, maybe Jacksonville. But why would Jacksonville do that when they're tanking for future picks and to get a QB from next year's draft? Which, this QB class coming up, hell of a lot better than one that came in last season. So why would they sit there and not only bring in a QB that they know they're not going to build around, but eat his salary? So Bucks just said, you know what? We'll eat it. We'll eat the charge. And see you later. Josh Freeman is now on the market. Unfortunately for him, it's going to be an ugly market. Because, yeah, Cleveland may be looking for a QB, but I heavily doubt that they're going to spend that kind of money to bring him in. And plus, they're playing well with Brian Hoyer. So they figure, why? Go after him. Why? The Vikings aren't going to do it because Matt Castle's actually playing better than Ponder right now. Who else? Who else? QB home? No, the Jets. No, that'd be a bad fit. Terrible fit. The Raiders, maybe. Who knows? Kinda, sorta. I don't see it. Josh Freeman picked the worst time to have this kind of situation happen to him. Now, if he would have had all this happen during the offseason, he would have been picked up. He would have been picked up by another team. Tampa Bay would have been able to trade him, get some picks off of him. They would have ate his salary charge. That wouldn't have been a problem. But he's going to be sitting in limbo hoping that a team loses a QB to the point where they're going to have to call for his services. Or he's just going to have to play the backup role, which he doesn't want to do. He still feels he's a starter. But no team is looking at him like that. No team wants to incur that $6.5 million salary charge. Just an ugly divorce. And anybody saying that Tampa Bay is tanking, remember this. They spent almost $100 million bringing in Deshaun Golson and Darrelle Revis. You don't spend big money like that to rebuild. Everybody was pegging them as getting that defense together. Josh Freeman with Vincent Jackson and Mike Williams and Doug Martin. They were going to do big things. Wrong. Wrong, I tell you. Now the team is a total mess yet again. And they're 0-4 as well. And they're on a bye. Sad biz, man. But like I said, Josh Freeman, tough break. Because you're looking at a backup role for the rest of your career. I'm just going to flat out say it. You're on Jason Campbell status now. Now, having said all that, tonight's quick pick. We have the Buffalo Bills traveling to face the Cleveland Browns. My pick in this, I'm going with Cleveland. Cleveland's at home. Cleveland has a stout defense. The way Brian Hoyer is playing, and the way Jordan Cameron, the way he and Brian Hoyer have this communication, how they have this rapport, I'm not betting against that. And Josh Gordon is back. He's going to be doing big things. Hey, Willis McGahee, I think he'll have about 85 yards rushing. The Buffalo Bills, well, I think they're great. This is a tough road test for a rookie QB in a hostile environment. No matter how much we clown Cleveland, that is one of the most loyal fan bases and one of the most loyal stadiums. And now that the Cleveland Indians are done with the baseball season, they're going to be in full force in the dog pound. So home field advantage, home cooking, the momentum between Hoyer and Jordan Cameron, and then, of course, that defense, with DeQuell Jackson and Joe Hayden. I got to pick the home team on this one. 21-17, Cleveland. And there's my pick, ladies and gentlemen. And there we have it. I've wrapped up this week of Week 4 action. And going into Week 5 with this quick pick, because this is the start of Week 5. So, hope you all enjoyed this. Hope you get a chance to, watch this and mull over some things. But tonight, I will be watching this game. And here we all thought last week it was going to be a piece of trash. Now it's going to be entertaining. It's going to be entertaining. That's what I love about the NFL. Parody, folks. Parody. I'm Adrian Mason. Thank you for reading my blog. Thank you for watching my videos, listening to my podcast. And I will see you later. Out.